I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.
So anyway, concept being, sort of walking through what you did. For me, I guess I can start with what happened in that, last year I had a pretty big financial loss when a deal fell through after interest rates went up. There was a whole several months of struggle to even reach the point of knowing that it was over. And you were, certainly one of the major, had a major impact on me getting through that as mentally intact as possible. But then, sort of helped me even after the fact, when I started coaching with you. So I guess my thought process was we could talk about, sort of how you walked me through it, how you, sort of what you did to help me, and what your, I'm sure every person is different, but what you kind of look at from the way that you approach, sort of coaching.
Well, I think we need to paint a picture here. So, and I'm not here to tell Jason's business, but we're not talking about losing $5,000 of earnest money here, guys. We're not talking about an RV park, single family house. We're talking about multiple six figures here. Really debilitating financial loss, right? And I will tell everybody till I'm blue in the face before I get into what we did. Do you want to know why I knew you were going to be okay? You want to know why I knew we were going to get through it together? Because your first comment to me when you did lose the money was this: well, at least it was my money.
Yeah.
And you said, at least it was my money, not an investor's, because I can live with the choices that I made, but those other people didn't make those, And so like that, I knew like the personal responsibility of the situation was not lost on you, because a lot of people would they would lose focus of the actual thing, and they would be woe's me and all this stuff. And yeah, that's a big deal. But to have the wherewithal to understand that there was nobody else, in trouble, right? That's a big deal, right? And I think, it sounds trite and it sounds simple, but just getting you to understand that you are bigger and more than the money.
Mm-hmm.
And if you as a person made it one time, then you can make it again.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason why I'm comfortable talking about it is because I've interviewed multiple people who have lost 40 times what you've lost. 30 mil.
That sounds terrible. Yeah.
50 mil.
Yeah.
Right. And they were like, yeah. But what I realized is every day they stuck to things that they could do, right? They could do. And I think for you, getting you to understand that the kids were still there, the house was still there, the wife still supported you, and understanding that right off the bat, that's number one. But also understanding this little trick about coaching. It's only come to me in years past from coaching. Not having to me be the savior. Not everybody needs a coach, but I'm in case of emergency break glass.
Right. Right.
Kind of situation, right?
Yeah.
And my concern for you was those lonely nights, ruminating about it, not having the right mindset can really spiral down to a dark place.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I've talked about it now out there, and we don't have to like rehash what exactly happened, but basically a deal fell through because of interest rate changes, and I lost $500,000 in earnest money. And it's funny because like the money side of it is, it's all relative. Like you said, like you've talked to people that have lost far more than that. And then in other situations, you hear about people have lost. I was just I was just on someone else's podcast that relayed this story. But when I was a kid, my mom, we didn't have money. My mom sent me up to the store to get milk. Right, she'd go up to the convenience store and get some milk. She gave me a $20 bill. I got to the store, picked out the milk, went to the counter. Somewhere along the way, I had lost the $20. Fell out of my pocket. And now most people would be like, yeah, $20, who cares? I obviously haven't forgotten it. I was like 5, or 6 or something. Like, I clearly haven't forgotten it, because there's, at that time, like, that meant a lot to us. So, and don't get me wrong, the $500,000 meant a lot to us too. But it's just, it again, it's money, and these things happen, and you have to take perspective. But it was,
well, to put it in perspective, right? And I love that we're talking like literally right now. Like, we lost a $1.6 million plumbing job today that we already had.
Yeah, it happens all the time in business, right? But people don't talk about it.
But hear me out though. I'm okay with it, because the confidence that the company, the sales guy that did it, all of us that gained from it, is worth $100 million.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's the choice to learn from it, and kind of take.
You know what?
Take
You know
those
what? You
challenges
know what
as
one of the
lessons.
owners said today? Sometimes when you get brought up to the major leagues, you swing and miss, but
Yeah.
you're still in the major leagues.
Right.
And you doing a deal of that size, because remember, guys, I know Jason better than most. You had came to me when we first met, and you were going to do little flips, and I told you you were out of your freaking mind. And for you to do deals like this, we were already like 3 years or 5 years in advance, right? And there's a lot of lessons learned. But I think what I did is, you do have a very successful business that you had on the side. And I was just trying to highlight to you the benefits and the strengths of the years of experience that you've had, in order to get you to hang on to something that you knew, that you were confident in, and that you could do in your sleep. And that is to instill confidence in the parts of you that you lost in losing that money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was, I mean, to me, that was step 2, at least from my perspective, step 2 of what you did for me. Because the beginning was, maybe you remember this, I don't know, but like, you made me do story work. You made me write it down, what I like, essentially write the process. I remember, like, write titles about what happened, and then pick one and write an actual story behind it. And then you just made me read it, and you made me read it until I stopped crying, which was like, like, that was just a crazy, because all that, when you're in it and you're working through it, and you're like, I got to figure out a way to make this happen. I got to figure out a way to make this deal. I got to figure out a way that this can be okay. You don't really, I think, process it. And then you made me write it down. And I think, like, I'm pretty sure you made me write the titles when we were talking directly. And then you're like, now write a story. And the next time we did, but I still have it. Like, I still have that story, and I'll, like, never, like, that'll be something that I'll always keep, because it's just like a little bit of a reminder, in reminder of, like, not necessarily like, I'm not gonna forget that it happened, but like a reminder of what was important during that time. And, like, as you said, like, my wife didn't go anywhere. Like, my best friend and business partner, who some of this money was his, like, didn't go anywhere. My kids don't care. They don't know any better, right? They'd probably just assume I didn't do any of this, and I just played inside with them all day. Like, they don't care. And so it was kind of just, you I think you put the pressure on yourself to do something big. And it's like, I go to real estate conferences or whatever, I go to these conferences, and I'll come back, and I'll be like, I was telling my friend, I'm like, oh man, you should have seen, like, the all these like successful people I was around. It was so cool. And he was like, "You're successful," and and I like, yeah, yes, but like, there's always that, just like, if you're, maybe the lesson is to realize that, you know what I mean, like, maybe to recognize what's already good in your life, and what really matters in all of this, like, because at the end of the day, we'll make the money back. It'll come back. We'll do better than that. Like, it'll be okay. But I know that now. I don't know that I knew that then. I don't know that I knew if I believed it then. It had a lot of meaning behind, besides just, losing the money.
Well, it had a lot of value in who you were as a person.
Yeah.
And defining who you were, right? The thing with story work, right? And you can't hide from the words on a paper.
No.
Right. And I think that if you had to put me up against the wall and you had to ask me how many people actually write out the things that are in their head, I would say maybe 10%, maybe. Yeah. Right. And I only know the work of this because I was trained in it, and I had to write my own damn stories. Right. I had to deal with my own demons. Right. Yeah. And I don't know if I ever told you this story, but Mark, the leader of the group, did an 1.5-hour coaching call where I literally cried for 2 days afterwards. Anytime I heard a song, an Adele song, anytime I heard anything that's sad, I cried for 2 days straight. And you know how many words he said to me? 13 words. I counted them in an 1.5 hours. And it was all because I was reading my own story and ripping my freaking soul apart. And guess what? That was 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, give or take. And my dad, that's what that story was about, not having a relationship with my dad for 20 years, just spent 4 days at my house.
It's awesome.
So tell me story work doesn't work, right? Yeah. And it's just what they talk about story work. What I got you to do was create distance from your story.
Yeah.
You're not living inside of it anymore. You're separating yourself. And every time that you read it, you create more and more distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was really profound. And like, I don't know. I don't really know that I had an expectation. I trusted you, and I was like, I'm just gonna do what he says. So I wrote it out, and I was like, I wrote it. This sounds stupid. I was like, it sounds kind of stupid, but whatever. And then when you made me read it out loud, it was just like, I couldn't even. I think it took 3 times before I could even get through the whole thing, or something like that. Yeah. It was just like very hard to, because I think, as you said, like, you're almost, as you're living it, you're almost living it as an outsider. Like, it's just going on, and then you write the story, and then as you're writing the story, you're writing it from the inside, and then you have to like step back and read it again, and it's just like, wow, what? Like, no, I didn't even,
because we disassociate, right, the story that we create has different versions now, and it's not until you write it down and you read it that you realize that some of those versions might be made up.
Yeah. Even like, like I said, like, I've kept it, and I've read it recently, and I was like, even in the story, I talk about how I had disassociated myself from it while it was going on, because there was so much just work to be done to find any possible solution, right? It was like, there was not time to like sit and be sad. I mean, I could have just sat and be sad, I guess, but then it was like, then it's definitely not going to fix itself, right? So it was like, I was looking for solutions and just, talking to people. But yeah, at the time, it was like, until it was finally really, truly a dead deal, I don't know that I accepted that or believed that. You know what I mean? It's like,
of course not.
I don't know if that's
like the biggest issue that people the biggest issue that I wish that if you could share anything and just write a book, right? And it said like fucking 3 sentences, right? Like that's all the book said. It'd be like it'd sell like 10 bajillion copies. And it says like the fact that you think that the person that you want to be like never has a bad day is dumb. Like that's all the book says.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I had a client get on with me today and he goes, dude, I've had a rough week. Tell me your week was rougher. And I told him my 7-day stretch and he goes, oh shit, I'm playing in the little league. And I go, yeah, I could write a Lifetime movie about what's taken place to me in the last 7 days. But he goes, why are you smiling? And I go, because I know that it's going to be great on the other side of this because you don't get the good without the bad.
Yeah.
You don't get to spend that time. You know what's interesting, right? And I know it sounds ridiculous to say, but like I know there's a lot of families out there that they would really like that time they had with COVID back. You know, that time they got to spend with their kids and that moment to really be present. And I think that this happening with you, Reese, and I'm not saying that they were out of whack, but I think it only reinforced to you the priorities in your life that mattered the most. And that if you weigh that on a scale, it's no the 500K is nothing compared to that.
Oh yeah, no, I would I would give up far more money to save my kids, save my that kind of thing. Like there's no comparison there. And it's you hear people mention this sometimes and they're like, if I offered you $10 million, would you take it? And it's like everybody says yes. And it's like, well, what if I told you, you only have 1 day to spend it because you died tomorrow? Then it's like, well, no, of course not. Right. And so it's like, it's a silly.
I don't know though. I don't know. Like 1 day, 10 million, 24 hours. I'd have a damn good time.
I mean, it might be a really good 24 hours, but yeah, it's like, what's your what's time worth? What's life worth?
Well, my joke, right? This is my new thing. It's so much fun because nobody sees it coming. So let's say that you own a company and for 10 years, you only make $100,000. Okay. That's all you do. You make $100,000. And on year 10, you sell the company for $10 million. Was the company only successful in year 10 or was it successful every year?
Yeah. No, it is enjoy with this. I think this was Alex Hermosi, but he said, something about you have to enjoy the middle, right? Because people look at things as a destination, right? Like we're trying to get our business somewhere, trying to get our kids somewhere, we're trying to get our marriage somewhere. But like, to be good at marriage, there is no end point. To be good at business, there is no end point. It's like, yes, maybe you sell it eventually, but the point being is like, you're not necessarily, he's talking about like really what you want to get good at and what you want to enjoy is the middle, like the part where you're just kind of living in it and what that looks like. And I think so often we get focused on the next step, the next level, the next milestone that we can achieve. And it's like I say this stuff like I don't do it. I do it all the time. I mean, it's like, part of, this to me, again, like the second step of coaching with you was about my surgery business. As you mentioned, you told me, let's focus on that. Let's reach a revenue, let's set a revenue goal. And what do you have to do to get there? And it was like, we didn't get there in the first month. And I was mad about that. You know what I mean? And it's just, so it's like changing that mindset, that perspective on what the focus is okay, you might have this revenue goal, but the focus should be, what do we do to get to that? Not because I don't want to make it for 1 month. I want to make it for all the months, right? So it's like,
well, it's interesting, right? The mechanics of the situation are the same, right? Like, like meaning that I'm just using it from what I'm currently doing. Like, great. Like, okay, we show up when we were saying, and that's cool, and all this. I'm using it as plumbing and HVAC, and that's great. We're gonna do what we say we're gonna do. But the question now is, how great is the work that we do when we do it? How trained is everybody? Because you can be the best, but if you're not the best at the actual execution of it too. And what I mean by that is like you have a drive within inside you that done repeatedly over and over again, that company, meaning the surgery company, can scale while the others languish because they're not focused on the right things and they're too caught up in, where you could sustain a business for years to come, that you could then become your own bank, that you could invest in your own real estate. And now you created a flywheel of a life that really provides ultimate freedom. And to me, that's the aha moment that flipped for me when you're creating, what essentially is a flywheel. And I thought you had something there with years of experience that operated in a state where with high margins, with low of your time. So all the pieces were there. They just were jumbled and mismatched different places.
Yeah, for sure. It was, and again, it's like comes back to that, I don't know, like identity and what did I had decided I was going to be, a serious real estate investor. And so it was hard to, it was almost like I felt like I had to push surgery to the side or to the back burner. And when instead what I needed to do was, kind of lean into what I already know, what I already have established, what I know I'm good at and have confidence in. Whereas, still sometimes there are still times in real estate where I have imposter syndrome. And so, but I don't feel that way when I'm doing surgery. So it's kind of like when you have a loss like I did, leaning into something that, you already know you feel good about. And it was, and I know, like I gave you resistance to that idea. I know I did. And I know.
Don't worry. I mean, me and Mark knew that it was the right move 2 years ago, but it's okay. You had
right. Sometimes you have to come around on your own. But yeah, and now, I mean, it's funny because now I guess I give you credit, you and Mark credit on this too, because now I'm with my, like, basically now I've launched a fund where I'm trying to put the two together. Like that's actually the point of the fund, is to bring veterinary medicine and real estate together. And so it's kind of like a, I don't know, full circle with with some great coaching along the way.
I mean, I'm not saying, but I might be saying that the first call we were ever on, like 2 years ago, I might have said this exact same thing, but it's cool. I digress. I'm not,
right. It is possible that there was some foreshadowing.
I think I can find the recording of that call.
It's probably true. It's probably true. Yeah.
But hear me out though. And this is an important point that I want all the listeners to understand. I can't be the message. I can be a vehicle for the message, but that message has to happen internally. And it was the message that it was the message that I learned when I got sober, is that you can't be the vehicle for people to want to get sober. You can share your information, but the ultimate change has to happen within inside them.
Do you find that frustrating?
It's the most, dude, are you fucking kidding me right now?
I mean, I have a
guy that I just gave everything to. Everything. Can you imagine having access to me 24/7? Seeing me 8 hours a day, wanting me to get your life better, who's going on his second divorce, finally got alcohol under wraps, right? But hides all this shit from me. I get him an apartment, all this shit. And then to get a call at 2:30 in the morning 4 days ago that he wrapped a company truck around a fucking telephone pole and left the scene of an accident. Dude, he's 30 years old. His entire life was going to change for me and be a manager of probably $100 million business, regional construction, and he gave it all away. And none of that's going to happen now. He got fired. He got let go. Yes, it's wildly frustrating, right? But I've learned that if I want people to truly change, they have to change themselves. And I have to distance myself from needing them to change, because here's where it's crazy. This is the holy crap, God bless Chase Tullison moment, okay? My need to get people to change is victim mentality. My need for my client to change because I change them is my narcissistic tendency as a coach when I started. My need to be available to them as a resource and to let them make the change for themselves means the change will continue for the rest of their life.
Yeah, makes sense.
Wildly frustrating, just so we're clear. Like you have no idea, right? Because I mean, you get stabbed over in the back a million times, right? And even clients that refuse to listen to me.
Yeah.
And Anthony Facino made a great point. He said, Austin, he said, you and I are two totally different people. He goes, you like to dive off of a 100-story building through a hoop, reach down, grab somebody by the neck, and pull them to be a better person. He goes, I walk outside, handle some tools, walk away, and say, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine I get frustrated on a very small scale with just like I talk to people about I talk to friends about investing, financial literacy, that stuff, which just trying to more like, hey, this is what I've figured out here, right? Like just and it's like they don't, and people don't want to hear it, and so you have to, and what you're doing is even at a deeper level. So I mean, what Anthony said is true. It's like I'm just trying to help them get out of their own way, basically, like financially, and it's still frustrating. And it's like, it's funny how you can make those realizations and kind of adjustments within yourself in different areas of your life, or you can tell someone else or whatever. But for example, when I had a W-2 job, I was training residents in surgery. And I worked with residents, students, interns, all like people, sort of along the learning ladder. And they would get so upset when we would do surgery on a pet. We send the pet home with a 2-page discharge instruction, and the clients just don't even read it. They do whatever they want. And they'd be like, they're going to mess it up, blah, blah. And I would say to them, you can't care more than they do.
Yeah. Okay, listen, I got a message for everybody that's listening to this podcast. You want to know the number one thing I see with my coaching clients in the 5 years I've done it? That they, in their W-2, care more about the company than the owner of the company.
Yeah.
And it drives them fucking crazy. And you're not the owner. I'm sorry to tell you this.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. But that's what that would be. I would tell them, because I would see them get so upset and be constantly on the phone with the owner and trying to nicely explain to them again, like, you have to do this. And it's like, listen, you cannot care more than they do. It's their pet. Like, you can give them the recommendations, you can write it down for them, you can do the surgery perfectly, but you can't make them care about the outcome more than you do. Or you can't care about the outcome more than they do, because ultimately it's once they go home, that's their responsibility.
The true key to life is to live your life as an example, knowing that your example of who you be or who you are will inspire others. And most of the time they'll inspire people that aren't giving you feedback, right? And I think one of the things that has shown me that is I have a guy that I worked with, fucking 23 years ago, that I ran into a year ago in Austin. And he was like, just so you know, I started a company because of you. I'm like, I've talked to you in 18 years. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He goes, well, I listened to your podcast. If I wouldn't have ran into him, I would have never known. I haven't spoke to him in 18 years.
Right.
And so, the joke is, not the joke, but the quote is, I can't control what you hear. I can only control what I say.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people only hear it when they need it, or when that moment hits perfectly, right? Like, my overall view on business is that I've obtained enough that now it's time to go live it in real war status. And that's what we're doing. let me explain something to you. The last 6 months of my life, the last freaking 5 days of my life, there ain't a motherfucking book. And I said that word on purpose. There ain't a motherfucking book that can prepare you for fraud, theft, personal defamation, restraining order, employee car. Please tell me where this book is, because I would have read it.
Yeah.
Right. All while trying to run a company, all while having your parents in town, all while, I mean, I could tell you stories that would melt your fucking skull. Right. But that's okay, because I've done so much work that mentally I know you only get the good because you had the bad. And I know that your life will only be enriched because of what happened to you. Now, here's the problem that I live in, and here's the thing that I always say to myself, is maybe life is trying to teach me messages or teach me things, so when I have greater responsibility, I covet it more than I currently do. Maybe life is teaching you the $500,000 lesson because you're going to be worth $100 million, and $100 million, those hurt a little more.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Lose it now instead of later when it's millions. But it's really a fascinating, I don't know, social experiment to see what your, when you had, I don't know that I had like a different life, but certainly a lot about it was different, and different goals, and certain, like I wanted to be a surgeon, and I would just be a surgeon, and that would be fine, and that is fine. But then it's like, when you start thinking bigger, and you start thinking about, growing, scaling businesses, real estate, family, whatever it is, like any of that stuff, it's, you if you want to do it well, you can't still think about everything the way that you used to think about it.
Mm-mm.
Like, and it's just, I think that's a hard thing to realize.
Well, it's alarming to me that, and I'm making a joke a little bit, but I'm being serious. It's alarming to me that 6 months ago, I wasn't getting $100,000 checks in the mail for our business, and I wasn't paying $300,000 in bills in a single day. And now it's my normal life. And it's amazing how quick you just adjust to, okay, this is what we're doing now.
Right.
Oh, I'm running a $7 million company. Oh, I'm running a $15 million company. When 6 months ago, I never managed 50 people in my life.
Yeah.
It's amazing how quick we can adapt when we just take a chance on ourselves. It's amazing how quick we can be okay with gas prices when we don't have an option, right?
Yeah.
But yet we're so worried about where we're going to get to. But I want to share something, because I've coached a lot of people. A lot of things have happened. The only reason why we got to where we were going, and the only reason why you created success in our coaching, and the only reason why you're doing so great now, is because you unequivocally showed up every fucking time, and you leaned directly into the shit. You didn't make excuses. You didn't miss a time. Nothing happened. You did what was necessary to walk through the storm. And it's very rare that a client does it unequivocally with no excuses. And so I, as a coach, want to thank you to be a shining example of how you can actually get through it if you trust somebody else and you allow somebody in your life to help you and support you. And so I think it's a big deal to say that that's a big deal, that the reason why you're here where you are today.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. And I think, yeah, I mean, it was, it was tremendously helpful. I mean, you've always been a inspiration and coach in ways, even before it was, I guess, official or whatever. But it was, I don't know, I felt I owed it to you do the best I could with it. I owed it to those that I felt I let down, whether that was true or not. And I owed it to myself to not quit, not give up on, kind of what I had, for what I still have as a vision. And it's like, maybe you and my wife, probably more than anyone, how impatient I am. And so does it happen as fast as I want? Nope, never happens as fast.
Let me let you know a secret. My fiance says that I'm only on this earth for one reason and one thing only. She goes, whether you learn it, that's up to you. It's called patience. We'll see if you get there when your time's done.
Yeah. That's it. And it's like probably scary, but I'm more patient now than I probably have ever been in my life, just from learning these lessons, and in large part from my kids, because I want to, it's a thing I work on, to be patient with them. So it's been do I want the rebound from that loss to be way faster? Sure do, but it's happening. It's happening, and it'll be like anything else, the slow growth in the beginning, and then then you start to grow that flywheel and get that hockey stick exponential growth over time. So it's life is teaching me patience, whether I want it or not.
Correct. 1000%.
Yeah. Well, listen, I know it's later for you than it is for me, so I won't keep you. I appreciate you getting on with me. I appreciate
it's such a pleasure
talking about this.
I just want to share whatever it is that you think you're going through, or that you're currently are going through. Remember that you're better for it. I don't care if you don't want to hear that, but ultimately there is a day that's going to happen where you go, okay, and there's going to be a breath, and it's going to be a deep one, and you're going to be like, I'm back, right? And I think to get comfortable in the not knowing of when that breath is coming is the ultimate gift. And I think that lesson alone, when you can sit there and you can still show up even when you don't feel like it, and when you don't know when that breath's coming, when you don't know when that next day is coming, it creates a warrior in there. And if you are going through something right now and this conversation hits you, I'm not saying reach out to me. I'm saying reach out to anybody that can support you in this, so you're not alone.
Yeah, that was a huge part of getting through it, in addition to you, but just other people that were supportive, that frankly I wouldn't have even been on my radar to be to necessarily be that person. But it's like, you find when things go wrong, it's nice to see that people really step up.
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right. Well, let's check out of this. Thanks all for joining, and hopefully this helps someone, and appreciate the time.
Thank you.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.